Hey, welcome. My name is Rachel Smith, and this is the Natural Health Rising podcast. I am a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and the owner of Natural Health Rising, which is my online holistic functional medicine company where I help people who have autoimmune diseases, chronic illnesses, mystery symptoms, and a whole host of other imbalances restore their health by natural means. On this podcast, you're going to hear conversations between myself and other health experts on functional medicine and general holistic health. My goal is to provide you with the tools you need in order to help you rise to your healthiest and happiest self.
So in this episode, you're going to hear my conversation between myself and Dr. Zubkov. Dr. Zubkov is a board-certified neurologist with over 25 years of experience. Most of the current management in neurology is symptomatic and does not resolve root causes of the diseases. Dr. Zubkov evaluates root causes and emphasizes a holistic approach to management of neurological issues. So welcome to the show, Alex.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. And I'm interested to start off by hearing a little bit more about your story. So how did you get into this career and neurology and kind of switching over to this more integrative approach?
Right. So I came to the United States and finished my PhD in physiology. I always was interested in neurology. Then I finished my residency and finished a couple of fellowships, gearing more towards neuro ICU and strokes. And what I expected to see was, what I expected to see was older patients with strokes. Like that's what neurology does. And what I start seeing is a lot of younger patients. And the more I start seeing them, I realize that, given all the medications that I'm given for strokes, not going to really hold them for another 50 years. And I start looking at them and they have exactly the same problems as my older patients: diabetes, obesity, hypertension, high cholesterol. So all of a sudden it dawned on me that what we're doing to ourselves is really lifestyle and our diet that really hurting us. At that time, when I started about 10, 15 years ago, paleo diet was kind of getting on the surface. And I really dived into it and I thought, oh, this is great. This is what we need to do. And I started really advising all my patients to go on a paleo diet. And I had really good success with it. But then some patients started resisting and some patients went back on their old habits. And I realized that it's not enough. Diet is just not enough. Then I started expanding to mindset. I started expanding to lifestyle. I started looking at other things. Eventually, I kind of went into environment. So all of this kind of plays a massive role. And if we don't do that, then we ended up like my 80-year-olds with the strokes at the age of 30, which is a problem, I would think. Mm-hmm. A lot of patients say, well, aging, everybody is aging. But what I tell them is you can age gracefully or you can age in nursing home, and it's your choice. And as a stroke neurologist, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of patients going to nursing homes. So I know what they look like coming back to my clinic. I don't want that to my patients. I want them to be gracefully aging, be healthy as much as they can, be active, and really feel great and have enough energy to play with their grandkids or do whatever they want instead of just taking pills.
Mm-hmm. So right now, where you are, do you just have a private practice?
So I'm in a private practice in neurology. So I kind of have a combination. I have a neurology service that I see patients with neurology, but I also work with patients who want to have integrative neurology, and very commonly I combine them. Some patients just do not want to go all the way, so I try to help them as much as I can. And if patients want to go all the way to really get lifestyle fine-tuned and really be healthy, then I absolutely can help them with that. It's really, I basically meet my patients where they are. Some patients are not ready now, but in a couple of years, they'll be ready to do more things for their health. Mm-hmm. And a lot of patients, they come to me with expectations of seeing yet another neurologist who will give them aspirin or some other stuff. And I start telling them about the diet and lifestyle, and they're a little surprised and kind of taken back. But then they come back to me after being on my diet and they lost 20 pounds and they feel great and they don't have any more fatigue. And it's like, oh, actually that works.
Do you continue to put most people on a more of like a paleo style diet still?
No, I moved away from that. So
Okay.
paleo diet is somewhat restrictive. So what I do for my patients is I actually combined paleo and autoimmune diet, and I do that for only 4 months. So this is really to start them off, to clean them out, to really get them to get ready to get a more personalized diet. And then I do a lot of functional testing to look at what their personalized diet is. And then we kind of work with that and really optimize their diet for their metabolic type, for their biochemistry instead of for somebody else. What I tell my patients, all these books about nutrition, they don't know you. They don't know what you have, what happened to you in your life. They don't know what happens in your biochemistry. Everybody is different. So we need to look at your biochemistry, figure out what you're missing, try to add that, and then again, repeat your testing and see how it goes. Because a lot of patients will get on a supplement and it will take them forever and say, well, it does not work for me anymore. Well, you probably don't need it anymore. You probably need to be doing something else, but you're really not testing, so you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I do very, very similar thing with all my clients for the diet part too. What's the functional testing that you do at that point after the 4 months
So
to?
typically, I go with Genova Nutraval. I also do Genova GI effects. So that tells me, I mean, you can have a perfect diet, but if you don't absorb anything, well, that does not work for you. So we need to look at what goes in and what comes out. And also we'll look at food intolerances, but I don't look at IgG tests because they're not very accurate. So I use so-called ELISA LRA test. And that has been very, very accurate. And I mean, even patients who just done that, a lot of them will lose a lot of weight just because they don't eat these inflammatory foods that inflammatory to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is actually one of my issues with all these bloggers right now that say, well, you need to eat turmeric because that's anti-inflammatory. Well, I've seen a number of patients who are actually allergic to turmeric and black pepper.
Yeah.
And we always combine them because we need to absorb them better, absorb turmeric better, curcumin better. And they will have inflammation because of this food. So instead of just pushing all these foods without really knowing what patient can tolerate, we need to test them first and adjust their diet to their personal like profile instead of just giving you umbrella diet that will work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with ketogenic diet. I mean, come on, ketogenic diet is not for everybody. It worked great for some people, and it probably works great for a lot of people in the short term. But later on, I've seen a lot of patients who come to me on ketogenic diet and their biochemistry looks atrocious. I don't want to hurt them. 20 years ago, I actually had a patient who developed stroke while on ketogenic diet.
Wow.
And that was kind of a big red flag for me. It's like, oh, this is not a benign thing. We really need to take care of it.
Do you think it was more of genetically their body couldn't handle all the fats, or was it more like, were they eating maybe what I would call like dirty keto, which is a lot of milk and bad fats? Yeah. Diet. Yeah. Like, yeah. Which
it's a combination. It's a combination. I mean, we know that in ketogenic diet, about 30% of the patients actually will dramatically increase their cholesterol. Well, and
right.
Ketogenic diet proponents will say, well, it's a benign cholesterol. Well, did you test that, or you didn't test that? So you need to test it, and then you say, this is benign, this is not. And honestly, even a lot of benign cholesterol is also not a good thing, because if you have too many particles floating around in the blood, it will slow down your blood flow and potentially will cause a clot. So we want to have it. I mean, it's not about cholesterol per se, but it's about the traffic. I compare cholesterol to just the trucks. If you have too many trucks on the road, you will have congestion. If you have tiny trucks, well, they'll get stuck in places and they will cause more problems. So you want to have bigger trucks, but not a lot of them, enough to fulfill the function, but not to congest the roads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of controversy around cholesterol right now. I don't know if do you follow Dave Feldman at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And he has cholesterolcode.com, and he's one of the proponents of like, well, if you eat a low carbohydrate diet, your LDL is going to go up, and like, maybe that's okay. So yeah, there's obviously, which is kind of again.
So the problem is that as physicians, we test LDL, HDL, cholesterol, total cholesterol, and triglycerides. We don't do the subunits. I mean, I do, but my colleagues don't.
Mhm.
So if you have a low LDL, so for example, I have a patient who comes to me with LDL of 80, which is normal.
Okay.
Well, when I look at their subfractions, most of it is a small LDL. It's a profoundly inflammatory LDL, already damaged, oxidized LDLs. They're going to have a stroke regardless of their low LDL factor. Same thing, if you have a little bit more higher LDL, is it a smaller LDL fraction that goes up or larger LDL fraction goes up? It depends on environment, it depends on your lifestyle, it depends on the amount of stress, it depends on your genetics. We cannot really tell that everybody, I mean, remember about the bell-shaped curve. You have 60% in the middle, you have 15% on the sides that will either not get benefit or will get hurt. Well, are you in 30% or are you in 60%? Where are you? You don't know. Without testing, you don't really know. Without testing, we're guessing. We presume that patient will get better. What in a stroke care, this is kind of the classic example. Everybody needs to be on this medication, that medication, because it benefits everybody. No, it's not. You have to test your patient and figure out, is he going to benefit from this medication or not? Or are you going to hurt him? Are you going to cause a bleeding in his brain? Are you going to cause more memory loss on him instead of just helping him out? So we cannot treat patients like sardines in a can. Not everybody is the same. Everybody is different. What I do for one patient with headache would be completely different from another patient with a headache because they're different. Their lifestyle is different. Their risk factors are different. Their needs are different. And the same thing, I mean, say, well, you know, stroke, left MCA stroke, it's a big stroke on the left side of the brain. Well, some patients recover really well, but some patients don't. It may be the same size of the stroke. It may be the same risk factors, but one patient was a little healthier prior to that, and another was not. And that what determines, can brains compensate for all of this or not? So everybody is so different. You cannot ever say, well, statistically, you have 5% risk of this. Is it 5% or is it 0 or 100%? If you have it, it's 100%. If you don't have it, it's 0%. You cannot be 5% pregnant.
Right.
It's great for statistics. It's great for papers, but it's really not applicable to my patients. If I have a young girl who has a 0.4% risk of breast cancer and she gets breast cancer, she has breast cancer. It's 100% for her. It's not 0.4%. So it's a lie. We basically lie to ourselves that, oh, you know, I have a low risk. Yes, you do have a low risk, but if you don't do the right things, you will become a pretty high risk. And we're creating more statistics for instead of our patients, instead of really taking care of them.
Yeah. So going back to the cholesterol topic, what's different than, just to clarify for listeners, so I go to the doctor and I'm going to get a cholesterol panel. What are they normally missing? Or like, what could someone ask for to really make sure that they're covered to understand that deeper level?
So in order for us to figure out whether you have, so LDLs, the bad cholesterol, LDLs can be small, which is bad, or can be large. The same thing with the HDLs, which is a good cholesterol, also can be large, can be small. So the smaller LDLs and HDLs, the worse they are. So you want to look at this fractionated or fractions of the LDLs. So that test is called NMR lipoprofile. That test also will give you a number. It's called LPIR number that tells you how high your insulin resistance is. Because insulin resistance is a precursor for metabolic syndrome, for everything bad that really happens with us. So you want to get that number. And if it's too high, you really want to start lowering it. At the same time, when I do comprehensive lipid profile, I look at insulin as well. I want to see what insulin is doing. Some patients will have a normal glucose, but their insulin would be already high. So this is a very early stage of insulin resistance. We may want to address it now before it will create a lot of problems. I also look at oxidized LDL, the damaged LDL. That's the most dangerous one that forms the plaque and forms clots in brain and the heart. And then we'll also look at the fibrinogen activity. Do they have already clotting going on? So if they have a higher levels, their little plaque that they have may actually potentially get clotted off and may cause problems. We also want to look at lipoprotein A. That's another protein that is commonly elevated, commonly not addressed by physicians because there's really not much that they can do for that. I mean, I use vitamin B3 for these patients, but a lot of physicians don't do that and they don't test it because there's nothing you can do about it. So you need to look at it comprehensively and decide, do you really have a connection with your cholesterol or is it your insulin resistance? The other thing that people don't remember, it's already well known, but they don't remember that thyroid controls your LDL. Your active hormone, T3, is activating your LDL receptors. So you will have a lot of LDL if you have low thyroid function. In old days, physicians actually were given low dose of thyroid medications to decrease cholesterol. I was curious about it and actually found a paper from 1897 of a woman with a very low thyroid function, and she has extensive atherosclerosis. So we knew that for 120 years or 125 years now, but we don't really utilize it. We kind of forgot about it because now we have statins and everybody needs to be on statin.
Mm-hmm. What if somebody does have you look at their hormone panel and you're like, oh, okay, you have low T3, high LDL. What would be the next step for them?
I would work on their thyroid and I will figure out why they have a low T3. Are they not converting T4 to T3? Are they not have enough other cofactors? I mean, in order for you to convert T4 to T3, you have to have magnesium, you have to have zinc, you need to have selenium. So we need to look at that. So instead of just giving you more thyroid hormones, I would rather optimize their nutrition from mineral standpoint and optimize the conversion. Remember that a lot of patients with the thyroid problems are on Synthroid, which is a synthetic T4. You have to convert it. And if you cannot convert it, you will still be hypothyroid even though you have normal TSH. So that is the problem with our modern medicine. A lot of endocrinologists actually don't test free T3. They don't know, are you actually utilizing what you have or you're not? Yeah. And there are optimal levels and there are also normal levels. I mean, normal levels vary pretty significantly, but optimal levels should be in the upper quartile of the norm. So that's where you want to be in order for you to have optimal levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it still blows my mind to have all these clients come to me too. And they're like, yeah, I'm on Synthroid and this and that. I'm like, why are you on Synthroid?
For some patients, actually, Synthroid works fine. So yeah. I've seen a number of patients who had good levels of T4 and T3 on Synthroid, but for some patients, it doesn't. And yes, we can switch to Armour Thyroid or some other medications that will be more natural thyroid, but we also need to optimize their nutrient status. I mean, your thyroid is linked to your cortisol. So if you have too much stress, well, maybe we should address stress first and then start giving you thyroid medications. At the same time, if you're profoundly hypothyroid, you definitely want to have some support, but it should not be a long-term goal. The long-term goal should be to really figure out what exactly is the root cause of everything that happens. And one of the things, I mean, people ask me, why you as a neurologist start looking at my gut or at my stress? And I said, well, if your brain depends on your body to function, if I cannot fix your body, I cannot really fix your brain. And otherwise around, if your brain is bad, your body was not going to work properly. So everything is really connected to each other. And just taking care of that little nugget on your head, on your shoulders, is not going to really do anything to you. Your body still will be falling apart and will drag your brain with you. What I tell, one of my slogans that I tell my patients is, take care of your brain and your body will, take care of your body and your brain will thank you. So that's what we need to do. That everything is linked. It's, there's so many subspecialties in endocrinology, cardiology, neurology, but it's in one body and we need to take care of it. And in reality, our body knows how to take care of itself. We just need to help it. We are not smart enough to know everything that's going on in the body. I mean, just look at the metabolic pathways. There are thousands of them. You cannot ever completely remember them. Your body knows how to take care of them, but it needs to have enough energy, enough nutrients to utilize them. And if it doesn't, then it cannot repair itself. Our body is much more intelligent than any of us.
Absolutely. Well, let's maybe finish up some of this cholesterol stuff, because I'm curious, what do you have people do if they do have cholesterol that is harmful to them, and you find that on a test result and it's high and they're at risk? What are the next steps, maybe diet wise, lifestyle wise, that they can do to start to fix that?
So first, I always start them on kind of more elimination diet. So it's a paleo / autoimmune diet. So that's first couple months. Then I try to optimize the nutritional status. So I look at their magnesium, I look at a lot of other vitamins. I really try to optimize that as much as I can. Then if cholesterol is not coming down, and typically I will retest cholesterol in 3 months and just see where we are. So if cholesterol is not coming down, then we'll start seeing why. So we'll start testing maybe thyroid. We'll start looking for other nutritional deficiencies that may be affecting that. Then we may start some supplementation if we need to really help them out. And again, it depends on how patient wants to go about their diet. If they're really taking care of their lifestyle, if they're taking care of their sleep, if they're taking care of their stress, then I should expect improvement in their cholesterol. Always look for the CRP, which is inflammatory factor. If their CRP is going down, then I know that they're doing the right thing. If it stays exactly the same, and they tell me that they follow the diet, I will say, well, probably not. Probably we're missing something. So I basically have I do audits on my patients all the time, and I basically have little things that I ingrain in their lab work to say, are you telling me that you're doing things and it is really true or not? Because sometimes we will say, yeah, I'm doing the diet that you told me to, but when I start auditing them, they don't actually not. One of my patients, he has been working with me for a very long time, and I educated him about the diet, and he was still having some issues. And I asked him to just write a log of his foods, and one of them was Taco Bell. And I just nearly fell out of my chair. It's like, all these years I've been educating you, I've been telling you, and you do this to your body.
Oh my goodness.
So that just kind of really opened my mind that sometimes patients think that they're doing really well, but you really have to track it. You have to put it on the paper. And tracking diet, tracking calories is very time consuming. A lot of patients don't want to do that. But maybe for a week or two, every couple of months, it would be not a bad idea to just write down everything that you consume, how much you consume, and then you'll be able to figure out, am I doing really what I'm thinking I'm doing, or am I doing something different? Vast majority of the patients that I've seen in my practice before they did the labs, vast majority of them have extremely high fat contents in their diets, and they have extremely low protein in their diets. Nearly 90% of the patients.
Yeah.
So that's not going to go really well for the patients. Of course, some patients will have very high carbohydrate intake, but again, very low protein, very low fiber is the hallmark for vast majority of my patients. And I think kind of this is very general, can be easily generalized to pretty much the whole population. Because that's another thing, that cholesterol will drop significantly if you consume a lot of fiber. But taking a lot of fiber requires you to eat a lot of vegetables. And some patients don't want to eat vegetables. They think that they look at the powders and they look at something else, but they don't want to consume vegetables. But we have to get about 30 grams of fiber a day, which is kind of hard because that's a lot of vegetables, a lot of chewing. So we use a lot of smoothies to kind of to decrease them in volume. So it will be a little bit easier to get them in the patient. Mm-hmm. But this is kind of the diet that I recommend to my patients. It's really basically half of the plate is vegetables, quarter of the plate is some kind of protein, and a quarter of the plate will be some kind of fat. It's very simplified kind of plate, and they understand it. It's much easier for them to understand it. I don't want to tell them, well, you need to eat this much protein or this much carbohydrates. I do that too, but in the beginning, I just need to simplify them and just make them eat a lot of vegetables. And they're very surprised when I tell them eat vegetables for breakfast. Eat salad for breakfast. There's nothing wrong with that. You can saute your vegetables with your eggs if you like that, or you can just incorporate. We have a smoothie. But again, smoothie should be full of vegetables, not full of bananas and some berries that have a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the most common types of people who are coming into your practice, like common symptoms and other issues? Excuse me.
So obviously a lot of women with migraines, a lot of women with migraines. I obviously have a lot of patients with the strokes just because that's kind of my specialty. But I do have a lot of patients that come to me with just generalized fatigue, brain fog, kind of early memory loss. Obviously, I have, as a neurologist, I will see a lot of patients with Alzheimer's, with Parkinson's. But in reality, all of this just tells me that you have a body dysfunction. It's not a primary brain dysfunction. Our brain is called end organ. Our body will protect it to the nth degrees. So by the time you get damage in your brain, your body already gave up and just cannot compensate anymore. So when you have some issues with the brain, I go to the maximum because I don't have any more time to waste. There's no more reserves in the brain, in a body that is left that we can utilize. So we need to basically rebuild everything. So patients come to me with migraines and they will say, well, I have a migraine, I have a head problem. No, you have a problem with nutrition. You have problem with sleep, you have problems with your stress. And if we correct that, vast majority of migraines actually will go away or will become so infrequent then it would be very easy to manage with some other supplements. So it's not a primary brain problem. And again, all the neurodegeneration like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, they don't start primarily in the brain. You get a lot of inflammation, you get insulin resistance that will eventually cause problems with the brain. You have a gut dysbiosis that actually has been linked clearly to development of Parkinson's. I mean, we have never thought about that your bacteria in your gut may be related to your Parkinson's, development of Parkinson's, but it is. It's clearly, there are multiple studies that show that. So instead of going, yes, we need to go and we need to help their brain, but we also need to take care of their body to prevent progression of the disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What kind of results do you get with your Alzheimer's and Parkinson's patients?
That's variable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that a lot of patients are so set in their ways that they're just not ready to change. And when I talk to them, I really kind of take patients in my integrative neurology practice that really want to change. And typically those would be younger patients who starting to develop memory problems. They know the track. They know that their relatives had problems and they don't want to go that route. So they will be ready to do what needs to be done. When you have a 70, 80-year-old patient with Alzheimer's that comes to you and you tell them, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. I said, I don't want to do that. I've been doing it for the last 70 years and I'm doing fine. So then those patients, unfortunately, I mean, we can help them, we can improve some things, but we certainly cannot resolve their problems just because they're not going to really participating in their program. We cannot do that for them. We can direct them, we can educate them, but they have to do it themselves. I looked at other Alzheimer's programs. I mean, all of them recommend ketogenic diet. I have numerous patients that went through these programs and they come to me with the same problems. They did not get any better. They spend a lot of money on the supplements. And when I start looking at them, they're still eating some inflammatory foods. They still have mold in their houses. They still don't sleep really well. They still have sleep apnea. So all of this needs to be addressed. It's a comprehensive approach. It should not be just, well, here's the pill, here's the supplement for you, go away and then eat a lot of fat. So.
Yeah. You mentioned mold in houses. How often are you seeing that?
Quite a bit.
Me too.
Quite a bit. So and a lot of patients are kind of somewhat resistant to that. So yeah, I have a little mold. well, should not have the mold in your house. You need to start trying to remove that. And in Minneapolis, we have a lot of really old houses, like 100-year-old houses, and there's a lot of humidity in the basement. So there's a lot of mold. And I know, and actually one of the questions that I have when I intake my patients is, how old is your house? And how long have you lived there? And what was the previous house that you lived there? And if I have a 100-year-old house, I start going that route, because go check if you have mold or not. And invariably, a lot of patients will have mold in their houses. They did not know about it. So, but at the same time, again, it's hard. It's hard because there's so much noise and confusion online. People are saying, well, you know, mold and Lyme and all this stuff that affects your brain. If you have healthy body, your body will be able to handle that. So mold per se, yes, it causes a lot of damage, but if your body is healthy, it would be able to compensate for it. The same thing with the EMF. I mean, everybody has cell phones. All of us have Wi-Fi, although I don't have Wi-Fi in this office. So, but none of us, not a lot of us are getting damaged by that, as far as we know. But some patients are very sensitive to Wi-Fi and to EMF, and that is related to their mitochondria not able to compensate for all the kind of damage that EMF is doing. I think at some point we all will get some degree of damage because of EMFs, but we need to start thinking, how can we compensate for it, and how can we prevent it from really affecting us profoundly? Mm-hmm. And one of the simple things that I tell my patients, just turn off your Wi-Fi at night. Not that hard. Buy a $5 timer on Amazon and just plug it in, and it will shut down at night, and you can turn on in the morning if you need to. You have 8-9 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and you don't have Wi-Fi. I had one patient who had a lot of seizures, and we were trying to kind of figure out why he's keep having seizures, and his router was by his head in the bedroom. It's like, please don't do that. Please remove that.
Yeah, I just got off of a call with a client. She has Lyme and mold actually, and said, "Where's your router?" She's like, "Well, it's a really old house. It's a very old house, and there's only one place to put the router, and it's in my bedroom." And I was like, "That is going off tonight." Yeah, so that's definitely, if you have a router in your house, especially in your bedroom, it needs to go off at night if you're listening to this, for sure. What are are there other ways for people to boost their mitochondria that you ever talk about?
Oh, there's a lot of things that can be done for your mitochondria, but again, you need to figure out what is causing mitochondrial dysfunction, and that's what actually NutraVal is for. There may be some vitamin deficiencies, there may be some mineral deficiencies, there may be some toxins, there may be heavy metals. I mean, what I start seeing with the patients, again, we talk a lot about eating wild-caught fish and all this. It's a great fish. But when I start feeding my patients with the wild-caught fish, their mercury went up pretty dramatically. And it's like, well, that does not work really well. So I think salmon is becoming more contaminated. So you have to, and mercury is profoundly suppressing for your mitochondria. So you have to, and we've seen some patients from like state of Washington, when they eat a lot of salmon, they have pretty high levels of mercury, and they don't eat tuna and sharks and all the swordfish that supposed to be only high in mercury. So I think our oceans, unfortunately, are so contaminated that you have to be very careful how much you eat, and you need to test yourself. I had patients who were like sushi chefs who were coming to me with a massive amounts of mercury, like 10 times higher. And that is pretty obvious where they're getting it from. But some patients literally went from nearly zero of mercury to pretty high levels when they started eating a lot of wild-caught salmon, which is pretty disappointing, because that was kind of the staple for us to tell patients, well, eat more salmon because it's great with omega-3s and it'll help you to kind of improve your metabolism and your brain. So, but you have to, there are a lot of supplements, obviously, that can help your mitochondria, but I don't like giving supplement recommendations without really knowing the patient. You have to know what is causing the primary dysfunction in the patient after testing. And then we can really target supplements to give them to improve their mitochondrial function just based on their deficiencies. Because again, I can tell you that copper, for example, a lot of copper deficiencies will cause significant mitochondrial dysfunction. But a lot of women actually toxic on copper because they have oral contraceptives. Mm-hmm. Same thing with magnesium. Vast majority of my patients are low on magnesium. And it's not necessarily because of the low magnesium in the earth. They just don't eat enough vegetables. It's just that simple. So, I mean, all these bloggers, they say, our soil is magnesium depleted. Yes, it may be, but remember that all green chlorophyll has a magnesium as a core element. So when you eat a lot of chlorophyll, you're going to get a lot of magnesium by definition, but a lot of people don't eat that. So, and that's why they are deficient in magnesium. But magnesium is profoundly important as other elements as well. Copper and zinc are profoundly important. And in the last couple of years, everybody was taking zinc like crazy. And I had vast majority of the patients who were coming to me, they had a lot of zinc toxicity. Same thing with vitamin D. I mean, if you take too much vitamin D, you will get toxic. And all these people who are saying that you need to be on vitamin D of level of 100, it's not correct. You should not be so high on vitamin D. It will cause calcification of your kidneys, of your vessels. And yeah, take vitamin K2. Well, how do you know that it's not going to, that's enough? Do you know the proper proportion? Do you know the proper version of K2 that you need to take? Do you need to take MK7 or MK4? And which one will be better for you? We don't know for sure. So I think we just need to be really balanced in our approach to decide, well, you don't want to go too low on vitamin D, but you don't want to be extremely high. And if you can get vitamin D from natural sources like sun for free, then I think it will be better for you. And yes, sometimes you're not going to get enough vitamin D despite being in the sun. Then you need to figure out why. So is it a cholesterol issue? Is it a magnesium issue? Is it another element issue that is just missing in conversion of your cholesterol to your vitamin D? Mm-hmm. And again, a lot of patients don't realize that, I mean, your vitamin D comes from cholesterol. So cholesterol is not here to kill us, like my other colleagues think. So we need to remove all the cholesterol. There should be no cholesterol in the body. Well, your brain is 25% cholesterol. Every hormone is made of cholesterol. So we kind of need that. The universe, the whatever creator, whatever you believe in, gave us cholesterol for a reason, not to kill us, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. What are your favorite sources of healthy cholesterol for someone?
Vegetables. Really, vegetables. Vegetables. Healthy protein would be always very important. There is nothing wrong with eating meats. You just need to really think about the sources of the meat and quantity of the meat. I mean, if you eat red meat all the time, well, you're going to get a lot of cholesterol. But in reality, just think about it. Cholesterol is an integral part of every cell. So it doesn't matter whether you get plants or you get animal proteins, you're still going to get cholesterol. But 75% of cholesterol is produced in our liver. It's not coming from a consumption of cholesterol. So yes, there are some patients who are hyperabsorbers, and yes, we can test for that. And for those patients, there is a different tracks that I use to decrease their cholesterol. But vast majority of the patients will have high cholesterol because their liver producing it. And cholesterol in reality is basically a repair molecule. LDL carries that molecule from liver to your tissue to repair. So if you have a lot of damage, like inflammation, or in patients who work out really hard and have a lot of muscle damage that needs to be repaired, their cholesterol would be high because they are repairing their body, not because they are producing too much cholesterol because it's just they have other illnesses. So you need to start thinking what in the lifestyle of the patient will make them have high cholesterol. All these people who exercise 5-6 times a week and have weightlifting sessions that are 2-3 hours, they're damaging their muscles. They also increase their cortisol. It will all drive their cholesterol up. And then somebody will put them on a statin, and then they will have significant muscle aches and muscle pain because cholesterol or the statins will decrease their CoQ10 in its cells. So medications that we use are profoundly effective. They're specifically targeted to do what they're supposed to do, but they come at a cost. A lot of medications will decrease other supplements or other nutrients in our body. For example, metformin, the darling of bloggers or fitness gurus, that you need to decrease your insulin resistance. Well, it drops your vitamin B12 like crazy. So if you don't have vitamin B12, all of a sudden you have memory problems, you have neuropathy. So you better check your vitamin B12 and folate if you want to be on metformin. So every medication and every supplement, honestly, comes at a cost. So you always have to be cautious about, are we doing this for the purpose of really replacement temporarily, maybe for 2-3 months, or are we doing it just because somebody told us to do it? I have a lot of patients that come to my office on multiple supplements. My record so far is 52 supplements, which is a lot of supplements.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I counted. They cannot be absorbed. Number one, they will interfere with each other. Number two, and we cannot really know how they're going to work together. There's no way to figure out the interactions between 52 supplements. It's the same thing. I mean, if I'll tell my patients, well, here's the 52 pills for you, they will look at me like, are you idiot? What are you doing to me? I cannot take 52 pills. But at the same time, if I'll give them 52 supplements, oh my God, thank you very much, doctor. I appreciate it. I will be so healthy now.
Yeah, that's a little extreme for me. I am curious to backtrack a little bit about the fish part. So do you care about the omega-3s then in the diet? And how do you,
yes,
how are they
100%.
getting those in if you're not doing the salmon?
Smaller fish. So like
anchovies, sardines.
So I will just basically go down the chain.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell them to eat salmon. I will just tell them eat shrimp, eat little fishes that actually will not live long enough to accumulate a lot of mercury. So that's kind of how I go around it. But again, NutrAval will measure your omega-3s. So I will know exactly where you are, and then I'll be able to target how much fish you need to be eating, how often you need to be eating it. And if you profoundly low, then actually we may give you some supplements temporarily until you will build up your fish intake.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Obviously there are vegetarian sources of omega-3s, but sometimes they're not very effective, quite honestly. And again, the way how they produced, there are potentially some heavy metals. So you kind of really need to know your sources. And that's kind of the problem with our supplement industry, that there's so many supplements now online, and some of them are great quality and some of them are pure junk, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. What about migraine? I want to talk about migraines for a second, because you said that you have a lot of women with migraines specifically. So why women? Is this tied to hormonal stuff, or?
Well, statistically, 16% of women have migraines. So that's an official statistic from neurology.
You said 16 or 60?
16.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a lot of women. So men is about 5%. So I mean, of course, I have men with migraine, but women are just predominant. And unfortunately, a lot of women think that headache is a headache and it's not a migraine. So a lot of them actually don't seek any medical attention to really figure out what they can do for their headache. They just suffer. A lot of hormonal changes, like around menstrual periods, they will have a lot of migraines and they think this is normal. Well, it's really not. And there's a lot of things you can do for that. But again, first of all, you need to figure out whether you have your migraine and then start figuring out what is going on with you. I have patients that come to me with migraines, and again, one of the questions I ask them, what they do and how long they spend or how much they spend on the computer. A lot of them are 8-10 hours a day. So I start with blocking blue light from computers and giving them blue blocking glasses. And a lot of patients come to me and said, I don't have any more headaches. I don't need more medications. I don't need any more supplements. And my sleep is better.
Mm-hmm.
I just give them glasses and program that costs $15. Is that a greatest medicine of all?
Yeah, sometimes it's the really small things that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you see a lot of hormonal imbalance causing the migraines though? And what do you do in those cases?
Well, again, I'm trying to optimize. So everything that I really look at, I don't like diagnosis labels,
Okay.
because everything in our body is related to our cellular function. So if I want to really optimize the patient, I need to optimize their cell. Because if your cell is not working properly, depending on your genetic predispositions and other factors, you either will develop Alzheimer's, or you'll develop cancer, or you'll develop a stroke or a migraine. It may be the same abnormality in the cell, but you'll have multiple different variables. So instead of just chasing all these variables, I will go after cell, I will optimize the cell, and then I will optimize mitochondria. And if mitochondria is working properly, then your hormones very commonly will actually improve on their own, because your cells are able to handle and process that correctly. Again, lifestyle will play a massive role. So if you have too much cortisol because of your stress, unfortunately, your estrogen and testosterone will not work properly. If you have a lot of insulin resistance, your testosterone will not work properly as well, and estrogens as well. So, I mean, insulin resistance, if you look at it, it may cause cancer, it may cause polycystic ovary disease, it may cause strokes and heart attacks. Completely different, opposite things that it may cause. But again, it depends on what genetics you have, and we cannot really change genetics, but we surely can change epigenetics, our environment, our lifestyle, our mindset, and our nutrition to improve your quality of life and improve your hormones.
For insulin resistance, besides the actual diet, which you've already talked about, are there some other key important things that you have people start to do right away? Maybe it's like meal timing, fasting, or something outside of that for insulin? Sleep. Okay.
Absolutely. We start with sleep, we start with stress. So because that will, if that is not fixed, it will be very hard to fix insulin resistance. Okay. So yes, there are a lot of supplements that will improve that. I mean, we already talked about metformin, that's a medication, but there are other supplements like berberine will potentially help as well. But again, it's a patches. It's all of them are patches. All of them are basically the same symptomatic management as we do in the traditional medicine. What I want is to look at the root cause, what causes that. And sleep deprivation in vast majority of the patients, because they have inadequate sleep, or they have too much stress, or a combination of thereof. So that is number one thing that we'll need to do. Remember that melatonin that we use for sleep that's the strongest antioxidant in our body. So, and that is actually produced in your mitochondria, and it's on purpose because mitochondria produces a lot of oxidation. So you have to have antioxidation, melatonin, to basically kind of dampen it down. So, and if our sleep is inadequate, if our lighting is inadequate, then we will have considerable issues with melatonin. Then it will cause considerable issues with our mitochondria, and then our hormones will not work properly. Well, so instead of going after hormones, I would rather go after sleep and improve your melatonin, not taking melatonin supplements, but improve your own melatonin. And then really start going from there, start building on from the upstream to downstream, instead of just going for sexy things of detoxification and the hormonal balances.
How can people
do that too? I mean, sometimes patients do require detoxification. Sometimes they do require hormonal rebalancing, but you have to fix all of that above. Before that, you have to fix your cell, because otherwise you may not get a long-lasting results. You may get improvement, but you're not going to get a long-lasting result. And that's kind of the difference between kind of a lot of people in my approach.
What are like your top 2 tips for improving melatonin production naturally?
You need to have a sleep hygiene. You need to go to bed at the same time. You need to wake up at the same time. You need to take care of your mind. So you need to do meditation before sleep. Plus you need to avoid all the blue light. So unfortunately for all of us, there is a lot of patients who have LED lights, and they're profoundly high in blue lights. So red glasses for a lot of patients would be recommended. sleep in a dark and cold room, remove all electronics from bedroom, including cell phone, including alarm clock and anything else. And also you need to shut down all the electronics that have smart chip in it, because they will still be searching for Wi-Fi even if you shut down Wi-Fi. So that's a lot of people are missing that. They think that they'll shut down Wi-Fi, but their smart TV is still producing Wi-Fi signal. So you need to remove all of this from the bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, I mean, if that is not enough, then we need to start looking for what else is causing that, whether it's anxiety, whether this is your bowels that are not working properly, whether your meal timing is off. I mean, if you eat a lot of meals just before sleep, well, your body will be digesting. It's not going to be sleeping really well because it will be digesting. So again, you need to start thinking about a lot of things, but simple things is just simple sleep hygiene and how you start your day. When you get up, look at the sun. It's not going to burn your eyes, but it will reset your circadian rhythm and it will help you to start producing melatonin where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
There are simple stuff that we can do and does not cost nothing, but we just need to do that. But we're looking for gadgets.
Yeah, all the crazy biohacking things, all the supplements.
Yeah. You know, they have their place. And, you know, some people want to have that just because they want to track it, but a lot of patients just will start focusing on that instead of really start looking at the simple stuff. Just change your bulbs from LED to incandescent bulbs. They're available. They're not that expensive, actually cheaper than LED bulbs. They certainly burn out faster, which is annoying, but you know, that's a little cost that you'll have to take. I mean, all our computers, all our cell phones, all our TVs, they have a lot of blue light. That's how they're supposed to work. They're not doing it on purpose. That's how we see things, but we mess up with our circadian rhythm, and then your hormones will not start working properly. Your melatonin will start not working properly. So there will be a lot of issues that will cause a lot of downside effects that you don't want.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming up on time here, so I'll just ask you one more quick question, and maybe you've already said this tip, but feel free to ingrain it in our brains. If you could leave the listeners with one thing that they can do this week, one tip or action that they can take to help them live a healthier, happier life, what would you tell them to do? Start
working on your sleep.
Start working on sleep. Perfect.
Absolutely. During sleep, we remove waste from our body, or from our brain. If we don't do that, our brain will get toxic and we'll have a lot of brain issues. So if our brain is full of garbage, it's not going to work properly. So if you want your brain to work properly, you have to start cleaning it up. And we do that during the night.
Mm-hmm.
Just that simple.
Yeah, the flushing of the lymphatic system.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Good tip. Okay. Well, go ahead and tell everybody if maybe they can reach out to you or want to work with you, websites, anything you want to share. Go ahead.
My website is zubkovmd.com. And I'm sure you can post that.
Yes.
And there is a big button, apply for consultation. If you'll apply for consultation, you'll get a reply from me. I'll be happy to meet with you for about 20 minutes. We'll kind of discuss your case and decide whether we are really destined to work together. Again, I don't take everybody because I want to make sure that I will serve patients correctly and I will give them what they need. But if they're not willing to do what needs to be done, and that form actually kind of really outlines what I would expect them to do, then really I probably would not be a right practitioner for that.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah, we have all that in the show notes. And we have a free diet guide as well. So we'll put that in there. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching the episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure that you like the video and leave a comment and share it with a friend who really needs to hear it. Because when you share this information, you're also going to help other people level up their health. And if you or somebody else you know wants to work on their health and they're looking for a functional medicine practitioner, feel free to reach out to me to apply to work together. Thanks for watching and keep striving to become your healthiest, happiest self.